Education Channel. Education Channel. Education Channel. Education Channel. Education Channel. Education Channel.
Hello, today I'm going to teach you how to answer WH questions, especially the questions beginning with why and what. This lesson will be very useful to you when you answer reading comprehension questions. My lecture is divided into 4 main parts. Firstly, I'll deal with the functions of WH question words. Secondly, I'd like to discuss the various ways of answering the questions beginning with why. Thirdly, I'll be explaining how to answer the questions beginning with what. And finally, I'll give you an exercise. First of all then, what are WH question words? WH question words are what, which, when, where, why, who, whom, whose, and how. WH questions ask for more information about topics. Let's study the functions of WH question words. What asks for specific information about an idea, object, or action. For example, what did he say? What plus noun asks for details about the noun. For example, what color is it? Which asks for a choice or a specific item. For example, which one is cheaper? When asks about time. For example, when did he come? Where asks about places, directions, or positions. For example, where are you going? Why asks about reasons or purposes. For example, why were you late? Who or whom asks for a person's name or a pronoun. For example, who did you see? Whose asks about possession. For example, whose car is that? How asks about manner. For example, how did they play? How long asks about duration. For example, how long have you been away? How often asks about frequency. For example, how often do you go swimming? How far asks about distance. For example, how far is it to the beach? How many asks about quantity of something. For example, how many people were there? How much asks about price or amount of something. For example, how much are those earrings? Now, I'll move on to the second part of my lecture. The questions beginning with why. Let me ask you a question. To answer the questions beginning with why, what conjunctions and prepositions can be used? You can use 4 types of conjunctions and prepositions in your answer. Type 1, because, as, for, since. Type 2, because of, on account of, due to. Type 3, to, in order to. Type 4, so that, in order that. Let me give you an example. To the question, why did he study hard? You can give the answers in different ways, as in, he studied hard because he wanted to pass the examination. He studied hard to pass the examination. He studied hard so that he would pass the examination. The conjunction so that is used with subject plus verb, often containing can, could, shall, should, will, would, may, might, or must, to show the purpose of something. I'll give you one more example. Why was the game cancelled? The game was cancelled because of the heavy rain. Because of is usually followed by a noun. To sum up, you can use 4 types of conjunctions and prepositions, such as because of, to, and so that, when you answer the questions that begin with why. Are you with me so far? Now, I'd like to go on to the third part of my lecture, the questions beginning with what. I'll divide this type of question into 3 categories, as in 1. What as a subject question, object question, and predicate question. 2. What plus noun questions. And 3. What plus verb be questions. Now, I'll discuss the first category, what as a subject question, as an object question, and as a predicate question. To answer the questions beginning with what, you can place the information being asked in the positions of a subject, an object, or a predicate in your answer. Let's start with subject questions. I'll give you the example of what as a subject question. What destroyed the whole village last night? In this question, the whole village is the receiver of the action or the object. The question already contains the object. So, the required information must be the subject of the sentence, as in, a tornado destroyed the whole village last night. Let's move on to object questions. I'll give you an example of what as an object question. Have a look at the question. What is she eating? In this question, the pronoun she between the auxiliary and the main verb is the subject. The question already contains the subject, so the information must be the object, as in, she is eating a sandwich. Let's turn to predicate questions. The predicate is a part of a sentence containing a verb. The information being asked for can be the predicate of a sentence if the main verb in the question is do or happen. Let's look at the example with the main verb do. What do you do at weekends? The simple answer to this question is, I usually stay home and watch television at weekends. Where is the information placed? It is in the predicative position. Let me give you another example with the main verb happen. What happened to you yesterday? When you answer such kind of question, you must pay attention to 4 points. 1. Use the same tense as in the question. 2. Leave off any preposition after the verb have been. 3. Use the first person pronoun I or we rather than the second person you. 4. Replace the verb have been with the information. So, the simple answer to the question, what happened to you yesterday, is I had a car accident yesterday. Not I saw a car accident yesterday. If possible, you should avoid using a sensory verb such as saw or heard. Instead, try to describe the action. Are you with me so far? Now, I'd like to move on to the second category, what plus noun questions. If a question begins with what plus noun, you can answer it in two ways. Let's look at the example. What kind of music do you like? The question begins with what plus noun. The first simple answer is I like hip-hop music. In this answer, what plus noun is left out and the information is placed in the object position. The second simple answer is the kind of music I like is hip-hop. In this answer, what plus noun in the question is replaced with the plus noun and is or was or were is included as a verb. Now, I'd like to discuss the third category, what plus verb be questions. Let me give you an example. What is your father? In this question, there is no auxiliary and the verb is be. Reverse the subject and the verb and put the information after the verb as in, my father is a doctor, not a doctor is my father. So far, I've discussed how to answer the questions beginning with why and what. This leads me to the last part of my lecture, which is the exercise. Let's do the exercise. Answer the questions below using the information provided in the brackets. 1. Why were you late? The information provided in the bracket is a thunderstorm. The answer is I was late because I got caught in a thunderstorm. Or I was late because of a thunderstorm. In your answer, you can use because or because of to show the reason for something. 2. What killed Uba? The information provided in the bracket is a snake. The answer is a snake killed Uba. In this question, Uba is the object of the sentence, so the information is the subject. 3. What did Uba kill? The information provided in the bracket is a snake. The answer is Uba killed a snake. In the question, Uba is between the auxiliary and the main verb, so it is the subject and the information is the object. To sum up, in answering the questions beginning with why, you can use 4 types of conjunctions and prepositions such as because of, to, and so that. To answer the questions beginning with what, the information being asked for can be placed in the positions of a subject, an object, or a predicate in your answer. In conclusion, I'd like to suggest you to pay attention to the WH question words and decide where to put the required information in a sentence when you answer reading comprehension questions. May I wish you success in your academic study. Thank you.